Howdy, folks. It's Meandering Mike in the Man Cave of Madness. And we are getting in one last unboxing of a Charles S. Roberts Award 2023 nominee for Game of the Year. There's ones that I haven't covered yet. We didn't have time to get them all in, so we will do more in the future, but at a much slower pace. We're a little burned out trying to do too many too fast and just couldn't do it. So this is Downfall, and I'm not going to say the correct subtitle. It's The Conquest of the Third Regime. Certain words they don't like you saying on YouTube. You can get in trouble with their algorithm and stuff. So yes, it is Downfall, Conquest of the Third Regime. This is from G&T Games. So besides being a 2023 Game of the Year nominee, this was also nominated in the World War II era and under strategic game. So a quick note about the design credit. This was originally a Chad Jensen design, which he was working on before he died. He passed. And they decided to finish the game. He had lots of notes, and it's something that the process he discussed with his wife, Kai Jensen, who had a design partner with him and, work on development work and such. And she didn't fill up to the task, my understanding of finishing it. So they got John Butterfield to do it, and between the notes that Chad had made and left and discussions that he'd had with his wife, that she, helped transfer over some of that knowledge, and then it was finished up. And so I think it's just an appropriate one to cover here at the end. There is a Chad Jensen Memorial Award for game design. So let's go ahead and get this out of the shrink. And the shrink is off. Before we look at the back of the box, mine had a little errata sheet taped to the box on the back. It's very simple, very small. It said on one event card, it referred to the OKH faction, and it should have been referencing the OKW faction. So that's not too bad in terms of errata. Now, let's tilt and zoom again. There we go. I always like to start here in this corner. So 2-player game, 6 to 12 hours. It's not a short game. Solitaire suitability is, towards the low side with medium complexity. Now, I didn't mention it. I probably should mention before going into this that, let's see if we tilt up, that it is World War II, as I mentioned, that it was nominated for. And it is the later portion of the war as the Allies, the Soviets, start to close in on Germany and Italy. So it covers the European theater, including North Africa, sorry. The Western Allies versus the Germans and the Italians in North Africa. And the Allies invading in the West and coming up Italy, and the Soviets here. So this game, it was inspired in part by an old game from the 70s from SPI by James Dunnigan called Battle for Germany. And in Battle for Germany, it focused on, say, this portion right here, where you had it started at the end of 1944, going into 1945, with the Allies trying to push into Germany and up the Italian boot, and the Soviets trying to push, into Germany. It basically was a race for Berlin. And it was designed in such that it took a three-sided conflict, the Allies, the Soviets against the Germans, and they made two players play 1.5 sides each. You know what I mean by 1.5 sides each? Well, one player would play the Western Allies, and they would play the half of the Germans that are against the other player. And the other player would be the Soviets, and they would play half of the Germans that would be faced off against the Western Allies. So I'm saying each in a three-sided conflict, two powers against one in the middle. You split the two to winning powers at this point, and no one has to play Germany, but they each play half of the other side. So that is what this game is based on, but starting in 1942. So you've got the final part of North African action in 42 and pushing up into Italy and eventually invading, and the fight back and forth here, and the same split. So the Germans are split, and as this hinted, the half of the Germans are the OKW and the OKH. Okay, the OKH being the German forces and their minor allies in the east, and the OKW head of the Western forces. So this design is based on that concept, but it's newer, modern, bigger, wider scope, more years, covering all the frontier from 42 to 45, and with modern mechanical sensibilities. So we're seeing different kind of units, including some naval and air, different kind of army sizes, and a activation and initiative method. All right. That is sort of new and fresh. This allows sides to make choices of the kind of actions that they do as they have the initiative, but what they choose to do takes a certain amount of initiative sort of points on the track. And so if you're doing something small, you might not give up the initiative, and you might be able to get a few things in, and then eventually the initiative goes over to the other player, and they start doing things, and depending on what they choose to do, they might get to do a couple of actions in a row, or they might do something, bigger, and that gives the initiative back to the other side. So that's something I did a little research, because when I was interested in buying this game, I was, I wanted to know more about it, and so I was just wanting to sort of share that with you to set the sort of the framework of what this game's about, what's its origins between, who designed it, over the multiple, as it shows here. I should zoom back in there again a little better. So they're giving the design credit to Chad Jensen and to John Butterfield with design consultation with Kai Jensen. Okay, so that was the designer and the mechanics sort of background and all that. So let's go ahead and dig in and get the box open. And the box is open, slightly tilted up so we can see what's inside here. We got a nice big rule book. It's got matte paper. 44 pages. I'm not gonna dig into that right away. Let me go through. I want to find the counters and the maps first. All right. We have player aid cards, Western orders. So is it mentioning different orders that one could pick and do? This is so Western on one side, Soviet on the other. The OKW, that's that, this player, again, the Soviet, is facing the OKH, but they're playing the Soviets and the OKW. And the Western Allies, they're facing the OKH, but they're playing the Western, and they're playing they're facing the OKW, they're maneuvering the OKH against the Soviets. And that's that mechanism of playing 1.5 sides to turn a three-sided conflict into a 2-sided one by each playing 1.5 sides. That's an event card and set up for the campaign game. It's not an event card, but it's called, okay, yeah. Here's the event cards that will have certain units that'll come into play. So it's the unit sort of manifests the order of battle when they come in, and potentially optional ones based on random events. More campaign stuff. All right, Western Allies campaign. Wow, many Husky scenarios. So there are scenarios. So, the back of the box said, is it $60? I would hope a scenario, just like the Husky scenario, would be shorter than that. All right, now, okay, we're to the counters. Now I'm gonna zoom out. So there we go. That's just about perfect. Now, do note, these are pre-rounded counters. For the bigger ones, these smaller control guys are your standard small. God, these even look smaller than 1/2-inch markers. Maybe these are just much bigger, but I don't know. Are those smaller than 1/2-inch? Oh, and there's the fleets that are like double wides. All right. So we got Italians here. We got Hungarians. Slightly different color. Italian. Yugoslavian. Okay, there's, Hungarian. That's Romanian. That's Hungarian. Bulgarian. Now, obviously, that's German there. British. We got some Aussie too. All right, let's grab another one. All right, so I'm assuming here the color-coded one is the OKW, one is the OKH. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but we've got a unit designation in the corner, so this is not a strength. So the 3rd Panzer, the 9th. Now that is interesting that 8 there is in a box around it. So I'm not sure. Here's like the 12th. What does that indicate? Is there some special thing about that unit? Is that like an SS unit or something? That it's in, a black. It looks more like dark gray to me, but no units. But notice that there's the dots. It looks like a Columbia block game on a counter, which I have a problem with in terms of like, well, how strong is it? And you always have to keep it in a certain order. And what if you knock things and they rotate? With the block, you can keep it up on the right end, have the right side up. So I'm gonna have to see how that works. I'm a little leery of this mechanism on a counter that's laying down and requiring you to keep it always oriented a certain way. And is that going to be more susceptible to accidentally knocking them and losing track of what the unit strength is? Okay, submarines, a fleet marker. Okay. Now these numeric arrows, 5, 4, 3, then 3 with a 2, 2 star first, then a 3. So I'm not sure what these represent, if they have to do with the initiative, the activations, like do all these go in a cup and you draw these, and these are some number of, movements and combats. This is like, move 3 units and then attack with 2, but here attack with 2 first and then move 3. I don't know. That's just one of my little things I like to do, and look at these and try to examine and figure that out. Let's continue with more counters. Boom, boom. There we go. The nice Soviet red. See, they have the same kind of thing. So it's not, again, it could be some kind of activation thing, but I'm not so sure about that. They only have one that has both kind of, numbers in a box with a symbol, whereas the German ones, the OKW and OKH, okay, so yes, you can see here that this color, that's the OKW, and here's the OKH. I found these, so you can, the dark gray and the lighter gray. The Allies, are a mix of colors, but they only have these, I'm calling them activation / I don't know what they are again, but they do, like the Germans have some that are mixed, the arrow first or this first, whereas the Soviets only have the one with this, but they don't have the asterisk or star before the arrow. So the significance of that would be interesting to find out. Again, that could be doctrinal, the way that they tend to fight or something. So that'll be interesting to find out. So now we're at the map. These are not mounted maps. I can't remember if you could order and purchase mounted maps separately, given that they have this style of GMT insert that many people get rid of anyway. If you did, and they had mounted maps, you could easily fit them in with the box size. There's not a ton of counters, so you could do a counter tray thing, or you could use the baggies. So green dice and red dice. So obviously for the Western Allies and the Soviets use, I'm assuming or guessing, but it could be wrong, they could serve a different purpose. It's one for the attacker, one for the defender, or something like that. You roll dice at the same time. Okay, and there's some cards here. So let us set this portion of the box aside so we can open up the map. Maps, plural. And I'm going to leave him there for right now as a way to help tilt up. Okay, the feel of the map is it's like a coated paper. It feels a little glossier on the back, and you can see that sheen. This still reflects some light, but it's a little more matte. This is definitely just straight, smooth as possible. This has just a little bit of want to say nap, like a carpet. Okay, so unfortunately, okay, right now there's more of the map down here that I haven't folded out yet. We will do that. We'll take a look at this side. We're zoomed out as much as we can zoom out. So obviously this is the western portion of the European theater. There's some kind of holding box for the United States here. Holding box. It's the outline of the North American continent there. Turn track across here. Interesting, there's only 8 turns. All right. We have an action track here, numbered from 1 through 10. There's a little arrow and a note here that says, from the draw cup. So as things are drawn, I guess they're filled this way. It's like a queue, a pipeline. And I don't know if you always pull them in the front or you have a choice, but in terms of, maybe the deeper in the track you go, it costs you more. I mean, this could be like the cost and initiative. Like, so you're taking something deep into the track, it might cost you more. Whereas if you take what's up front, you can do more. Or I don't know, might not be that. There might be a different way that determines the cost of these. But this definitely says you put them in here. From the draw cup, they go to the back and then probably slide forward in some way. Okay, a note here, which of course it's sideways for you can see it says spend +1, and it looks like an hourglass. So that's like the initiative action points or something, is that symbol, I would guess, for each of your faction's order markers ahead of the one you pick. That's what it is, okay. So it's basically of your. So if you're mixing orders in here of different factions, because like if you just said, if they were all the same, and you said, well, I want this one in the 4th box, there's 3 ahead, so it would cost you 3. You could take that number and subtract 1. However, if there's units on top, you can't see the number. The number would have to be up here. So they're just saying count, but it says of your faction. So if there's a mix of faction ones here and you're saying, well, there's the first of my faction I want, the 3rd one here, it would cost you +2 points because there's 2 ahead. You get the first one for free, the second one for 1, etc. All right. A special box for the Siege of Malta, which of course Malta's way over this way and all, down below the Italian boot. We'll see it later, but this is Corsica and Sardinia, and so the Sicily is down here. Italian boots, you can't even see it off there, but so before I flip the bottom part that you can see it, notice that Norway is here, but only this southern part. So the action up on the northern coast of Norway and Narvik and stuff, they're, ignoring that. The invasion of Norway happened in 1940. So they're leaving this part here as part of this. So yeah, let's go ahead and fold that. Whoa, that's the box. Well, put it aside there. I'm gonna fold that under and fold that out. There we go. Now I'm gonna move. Oh boy. The box just does not want to cooperate. Sorry, folks. Okay, here we go. This, now we can see the rest. So as I was mentioning, Malta's here, but their Siege of Malta box, there's quite a bit going on here, but they're able to fit it in because they're leaving Spain neutral. They're leaving it out of it. There's no like optional rule, does Spain get involved or not? So with this stuff here, and Malta's way over here. So we notice certain red boxes. These appear in my mind obviously to be like objective hexes. They're important targets of control. Now notice there doesn't appear to be any on Sicily, but in terms of a route of ingress onto the boot, it's a a stepping stone. I mean, there's been invasions, Salerno, Anzio, but this was the target here, Operation Husky. But Marseille, Munich, Vienna, Breslau, Posen. There's Berlin, Hamburg, Leipzig. I don't think you can read them. Düsseldorf, Antwerp, Paris, Strasbourg. All right. Now it's interesting that they don't make Amsterdam one. I guess you could make the case for or against that. Now let's see. Can you see that? Yeah, Western and OKH orders. So this is the Western Alliance and the OKH that they control. So again, the Western Allies doing their stuff here, and that player playing the OKH, which is way over there, against the Soviets. So now let's look at the other map. So we can see the equivalent stuff. And we'll do it in this. We're going to do it in Okay, I was going to say this is bottom up differently. All right. So they've got on the northern part. So again, there's part tucked underneath here still. But this, and it's oriented this way. So obviously there's like the Western Allies, who also controls the OKH, sits at the south part of the map. So over on this other map, they had their control track of their units here. And the Soviet player, who is also controlling the OKW forces, which are fighting over here, they're sitting this side looking this way. And so this is upside down to this. So if you were to try to play this solo, that would be a little extra impediment in that this track you'd have to be looking at upside down. So that's an extra skill that you need to play this game solo. Is either to walk around the table, or if you can't, you just have to read it upside down. Okay, so looking here around for this portion, Sevastopol, Grozny, Stalingrad, Moscow, of course, Moskva, Kursk, Kharkov, as we would say today, you should say Kharkiv, but when controlled by Soviet Russia, this is pronounced Kharkov. And back then, Kiev, you would now pronounce this Kiev, Minsk, Helsinki, Warsaw, Königsberg, Budapest, Bucharest, Sofia. All right. So I'm going to assume when we see down here, we should be able to see North Africa going into like Egypt, and we should see like Cairo and such being objective there. Okay, so combat column dice modifier track optional. That's an interesting little here. Now, way over here, can't see, there is a map key. Unfortunately, as I like to harp on all the time, is like I always like to see in one place the key with the combat and or movement effects. This just has the key here, so I'm not sure where it's hiding movement and combat effects. Do that. Flip out now, flip that in, flip that out. Adjust what we're seeing. There we go. So yes, Cairo. Nothing else along here. I mean, we've got Tobruk, we've got Benghazi, but they're just things. Interestingly, they don't even have some kind of, fortification symbol or something here. So I'm assuming there's some way to keep track of the fortification status of Tobruk or not. I'm assuming or hoping, well, yeah. No, we do not have an objective in Crete or Greece. So strictly stepping stone kind of things here, not a direct objective or not. Okay, so a lot of spots for draw pile, card pile, event, weather, campaign starts, no, place for the force pool, etc. Okay, so that is in the maps. And again, I believe there may be available a hard copy of that. Now, so we have the rule book, and we have cards. Let's take a quick look at the rule book before we dive into the cards, and we'll do the cards last. All right. So, like we mentioned, it is a 44-page rule book, and here we go. Here's the all-in-one place. On the back of the rule book, I think it should be on a card. I don't know, maybe it is also on a card. But that's something you refer to a lot, and I usually don't like to have a chart as important as that to solely be on the rule book, because you want to consult the rule book for other purposes, and I don't remember there having been. I'm trying to glance through real quick. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. So that's something that I would probably end up photocopying and putting on a heavier cardstock to have a handy copy that's not on the back of the rules. All right. Very nice index. Unit name abbreviations. That's good. Let's go to the front and see how the table of contents looks or not. All right. Nice and detailed. There's interesting little, I don't want to say a highlight, but red marking at the side of certain rules. Okay, here we go. When playing the Overlord scenario, disregard rules with the orange line to the left or below the text. So, when playing Overlord scenario, ignore naval sea, interception sea attacks, ignore enemy naval units supply trace, and then who knows throughout the rules where we'll see other underlining or sidelining like that, but that's a note ahead of time. All right, so overall introductory information. Of course, to play game scale. This is nice to know. Okay, a unit with a maximum strength or 3 or 4 pips is an army. 2 pips is a corps, 1 pip is a division. Though these comparisons vary within nationality. It says each turn takes approximately 2 hours to complete. That's very interesting. Not many games have 2-hour-long turns unless they're a huge monster game where you got stacks and stacks and stacks of counters. So here's a game that only has 8 turns, and it takes approximately 2 hours per turn. Now that's because, I'm assuming, of that initiative and activation type system where in a turn you can do a lot going back and forth between the different sides doing all that stuff. So it's going to be a rich and involved turn that's going to take a while. But there's only 8 turns. All right, let's continue. Okay, so we're seeing more of these things that are not in the Overlord scenario. Interception, interdicted, contested, ready status. Those are more naval unit things. Okay, the initiative, 2 dice, 1 dice. Redeployments. Okay, so here we go. The arrow, the number in the arrow are redeploy. It's movement points per unit. An attack indicates the number of attacks allowed. Now, are we going to find out the significance of the fact that sometimes the redeployments were listed first? Does that mean you can redeploy and then attack? And in some cases, you have to attack before you redeploy? That may or may not be. It just might be they decided one time to put one first and one the other. I do not know. But that's what those are. All right. So there's a big game map key with defining what definition. So, land hexes, obviously a bunch of land hexes, but broken down into some sub-rules, talking about occupation and stacking, control of hexes. Now, unfortunately, we've got this that we're referring to, but very quickly, we haven't even finished the A's because there's more. Restricted hexes and hex sides, national borders, and so maybe this might have been something that would have been nice to be on a card that you could have this, and then maybe have it have just listed these high level, A1, A2, with a page number next to it. So you could say, hey, well, what is A? And it's on pages, 5, 6, and 7 with these rule sections, etc. Because now when we get to, B and C and D, you're going to have to flip back here to see what they're actually talking about. So I think I will photocopy this page and have that at hand. It's probably not something that you need to refer to. Well, you might need to refer to it more than once when you're first playing, but by the time you've played your first whole turn or two, then you probably got that part down and you know where to find things and what they are, etc. But yeah, I'll just photocopy that. So don't want to sound like I'm nitpicking, but I am. This is part of what I do, and I analyze things and I look into them, I examine them, and figure out, what they're doing and how potentially you can make them better. That's been my job, my career for a large portion of my life, is doing design and analysis, systems, creation, programming, database design, testing, evaluation, all that goody stuff. So, and that includes, business systems and game stuff and all that things. So that's what Meandering Mike does. So those comments are not intended to nitpick. They're intended to analyze and examine and understand and bring up questions that help you and I understand and get a deeper feel for what's going on here, what we're seeing. Okay, so since I can't go back and refer to that as we're flipping through these, I'm just going to notice that these are here. There's all these explanations of what these things do, what the different parts are on the map. And again, this is something that I think is probably useful to go through first in your learning of knowing what all these things are and where they are. But definitely I will go and photocopy that page as I'm doing it. That will make my my learning experience much easier as I go through all this. Okay. So that's the examination of the map through there, then the playing pieces. All right. So leg motorized fort troop garrisons, airborne shock troops. So we had a question about that unit designation. Being in a box or not, and I'm not seeing a mention of that here at this point. All right, let's keep going here. Unit badges and elite badge. So that's what the star is on some units. Conscripts, a supply badge. It's a little oil drum. I did not see. Oops, come on. So at this point, I don't know why some of the unit designations had the little kind of square around them. It may have just been cosmetic. It may be like, oh, God, that's an SS unit, and we're not going to put SS on the marker or make the whole marker black or something, but that might be just for historical note. All right, more on units. Ops orders. So ops orders markers. So we discovered that's a redeployment, that's an attack. Redeploy, then attack. So it does sound like the order matters. So you could have attack, then redeploy. And then there's symbols down underneath here. And it says, did I see it somewhere? I thought at a glance I saw that there was like 5 different types or something maybe. Or not, I don't know. So what you have available to you here, so these look like unit types, like airborne, infantry, armor, that, so you can redeploy these types. You can attack with these types, etc. All right. Partisans, naval, elite, general orders. Okay, so those were ops orders. So here it says this is what's sort of in that pool. 7 ops orders for each faction. 5 Western general orders, 5 Soviet general orders, and 10 general orders shared by the Axis faction. So between OKW and OKH. So that will be interesting. Okay. So I'm really excited to start to see how that's going to play out in terms of having this big pool, you know, a chit pool kind of thing, but with a queue as things come out and the different sides, and they're taking their turn. Here's a selection of what's available, but you're trying to decide which one to go for, and do you give up more initiative to get something deeper that I really want to do now, or do you say, let me, take these here that are cheaper, get more things going in? You might be able to get, this one for 1 point, this one for 2, instead of getting that one for 3. Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. All right, other initiative markers, current weather, strategic warfare markers, control markers, etc. All right, event cards. So I'm going to skip over this because we're going to look at the event cards. Initiative action rounds. Okay, it's played. Continuous action rounds, each conducted by the faction with the initiative. Whoever's the faction is the active faction. When it completes an action, any pending actions are resolved. Then the faction that does initiative connects the next one. So it can be the same one. So yeah, it's like I was saying, it's your turn. You're active now. You decide which action to go for there, and depending on by how much you have the initiative, you could get a couple of actions in, or you're going for something deep, and then you're going to end up giving up the initiative and then the next highest one. So eventually you'll always get your turn, depending on who does what, when, how much they spend, etc. So that really does sound quite interesting mechanic there. All right, various things to do. Weather, fill the action track if necessary, pick and place an order, pay the order's initiative cost, perform the order, resolve the events if any. And then figure out, well, who now is the initiative, and continue. Do it again. Okay, so like, yeah, we saw, you fill it, if something got pulled out, you slide down, you do it. So it is a queue, and it's, first in, most likely to be first out, but not necessarily. It's got a random access, again, using the computer metaphors here. So that's a very interesting mechanism there. All right. So we'll continue, leap ahead there. So redeploy ops, move active combat units through land hexes and land areas, move partisans, move naval units, begin not an overlord. Once you're at overlord, basically the Navy part of the game's over. You are landing there as in 1944. I mean, in a overlord scenario, that'll happen in 1944. But if you're playing like the campaign game, when the Allies actually invade and where, that'll be up to you guys. All right, moving naval units by sea, converting fort troops to fortresses. So that might be how you deal with Tobruk there, is you just create a fortress or something. All right. Attack ops. Who fights whom? All right. Combat eligibility, redeploy / attacks, and attack redeploy, yes. So that is the order. The order matters. And maybe doctrinally the Soviets, less likely to have certain style of breakthrough. Therefore, they don't have a attack then redeploy type marker. Headquarters recruits, mechanize. Armored steps shown on the mechanized orders marker. So you can add a step to an armored unit that's on the map, or flip an eligible unit to its armored side. So there are probably infantry units that end up mechanizing, and are already organically armored units that you can beef up with those mechanized points. All right. Partisan strategic warfare. Quite a lot to this game. Big scope, big scale. And you can see, I guess, why that it takes quite a long time. There's lots to do, lots to think about. The back and forth activation procedure, but at least that's keeping everyone engaged, right? I mean, you've got two players, but they've got their main side, Allies or the Soviet, and their half side, the German counterpart of their opponent, etc. So lot going on, a lot of back and forth, and you don't, I go, you go, where, I just sit and do nothing while he's taking his long turn and then my long turn, and it's should be pretty constant engagement. All right, the land combat procedure. So now, quite a lot of modifiers here. The attacker to defender. I'm hoping there was cards here somewhere. I'm assuming there was, but again, I don't remember off the top of my head if I saw that. And if not, I'll tell you, it should be there, and I'm going to have to make one. Please tell me. It's on back here, please. No. Oh, there it is. Whew, thank God. All right. Strength modifiers, all cumulative. Attacker, both sides defender. Okay. That's not how they have it organized here. So of these defender, of these attacker, these are actually, or some are on both sides there. But, so at least we got it here. Land combat, diral modifiers, strength modifiers. That. So keep that puppy handy. All right. So we will go past this here. We're going a little bit long here, as usual. Meandering like we meander through, but We like to be thorough. Sometimes we're more thorough. At some point, I will do unboxings that are much shorter. But as always, I don't see the point of that as much. You know, maybe if there's a game out there that no one has seen yet, there's no exposure on Board Game Geek, you know, sometimes just a quick, like, here's what's in the box, just so that you can see it. You know, that kind of unboxing has its place. But I like to delve in a little deeper here. And, you know, I'm sure I get a lot less views than the shorter ones, but I'm not in it for the views. I'm in it for sort of sharing an experience. And for those that want this stuff, you know, it's like, yeah, I want to make it available to you. A little deeper delve and, you know, share with you some of my experiences and analysis. And, you know, I've been playing war games for over 40 years, and by no means am I, you know, a super expert. I took a long hiatus in the 90s and early 2000s, but, you know, I've got a fair bit of experience between my game experience and my systems experience. So if you disagree, I'm not sure why you're watching this, but you can always say, Meandering, like, I think you're full of BS, and I don't know why I watch you, but yep, go ahead. I don't mind people expressing their opinions. I might not agree with your opinion, just like you don't necessarily agree with my opinions. As long as you are civil about it and polite, that's fine, and we can disagree. We can argue in the comments or not. You can argue with other people in the comments. Just, again, be polite, be civil. Victory. This long game, how do you get victory? Soviet Western faction wins. You probably can't see that very well there. And if I zoom in, then I have this conundrum of how do I tilt it so that you can read it? I don't want to bend the rules there. If you get to the 10 victory point space, you win. Well, how do you get victory points? Down here, objective track, victory track. The Western faction gains control of a Soviet-controlled objective or vice versa. Move the victory point marker 2 spaces in the favor of the faction gaining control. Can also be adjusted when resolving the United Nations or VE Day events. If the red tide over Europe victory condition applies when resolving that event, the Soviet player would set it back. So there is an event card here. They could just win it. If that comes up and that condition is the one that turns out to be in effect, boom. If the United Nations victory condition applies when resolving it, the Western player wins. When you move with the Soviet and Western ideologies control all objective hexes between them, excluding Oslo and the 3 strategic warfare objectives, Germany surrenders and the side with the victory point advantage wins. If tied, the player controlling Berlin wins. So getting to Berlin first can be important because that will break ties. And also that's, you know, another condition. So besides it being another condition, it's the tiebreaker. VE Day game ending condition applies. Okay, interesting. And if the weather marker enters the 3rd weather period on game turn 8, the side with the victory point advantage immediately wins. If tied, the player controlling Berlin wins. Still tied, the side with the most non-axis action cards in hand wins. If still tied, the game ends in a tie. There's a chance that you can have a tie. Not likely, but okay. Let's see, the land combat example. Now, yeah, this didn't have a separate example of playbook and stuff. It's all here in one big, you know, it was 44 pages. But there's at least, you know, what was that, 5 or 6 pages, 3, 4 design notes. Yeah, here's a little conversation about the nature of the game and it turning out being two-sided, which is really 3-sided turned 2-sided by each side having 1.5 sides they control. All right, so we're going to look at these cards. Let me get into them. And the cards are out of their little shrink. Action deck. Now they're color-coded, so we've got the Western Allies. Now, are these all the Germans? Is this a shared deck, or are we going to have separate OKW, OKH? It doesn't say here. So let's see if we find in here. Obviously, these are the Soviets up to here. And what do we find here? Oh, that's not what I expected. Events. So, yes, it is a shared. So they're events. These are some kind of reference cards. New turn. Initiative. Weather cards. Mud, snow, and fair weather. All right. So this gets shared. Let's look at this first. Okay, these stick together a little bit here. They're glossy, but they sort of stick a little bit. They're not quite as plasticized as some cards are. All right, so we're not going to look through them all. Play at the start of your axis order. So some are specific to, like OKW gets this benefit, otherwise this. And we should look and find that. What was that one errata here? Which card was that? Event card E10. Axis 30. Well, I don't see any E's on them. Axis 1. So did they meant? Oh, event 10. So it must be Axis. Come on, Bubba. No, that's not it, because this does not mention. Sorry about that. This is a strategic impact. This is strategic movement. So these Axis cards. Oh, no. See, yeah, that's why. These are action cards. These are event cards. There we go. Aha, here we go. E1, E2, etc. So we just go one more here. Like I said, these stick together. I suppose you could sleeve them, or if you just separate them enough and get to shuffling them. So here's the card: strategic impact. It says Allied and OKH factions roll, and it should say OKW instead. Okay, so it's happening in the West. So the Allies and the Germans, they're facing the OKW instead of saying OKH, it's OKW. So that's easy enough to, if you very carefully take a pen, like a nice fine, ultra fine point Sharpie or something, you could mark over that. Or not, and just remember, some people don't like to mark their cards for any reason. You could put a little piece of sticker over it, but then the problem with that is these cards would not feel this. They could not, oh boy. Yeah, these cards are going to have to be pre-manipulated to make sure that you go through them a couple times, slide them around, make sure nothing's sticking. Because, like, I think if you just tried to shuffle this deck right now, they'd just all clump, and you'd have to wiggle them, manipulate them, I don't normally sleeve cards, but these I might. These are just a little too, you can feel the edge on these. The way that they were cut has left a little more of an edge here, and they're sticking in each other. Yeah, all right. So it makes it difficult. So got to cook Fatherland Front, supplies, Commando Supremo. I'm assuming it says something to do with Italy and the West, and so part of the OKW overall Mediterranean dominance. Logistical return routes, sorry. West reinforced 1 infantry. The E-Day. All right, so go back to these real quick. That's where we started, and we misdirected myself, and I was looking in the wrong event deck, but this is what prompted me to thinking about, oh yeah, that errata. Light tanks. Okay, so that's weather. Fair, snow and mud, combat die roll modifier. Mud, no thank you. Snow, it's better than mud, but fair is the operating weather of choice for armored units. Naval assets, a breakout. Combat. So you have a German armored unit present. You roll 2 dice and consult. Reichswerk. Draw 2 cards and then discard 1. Oberbefehlshaber. All right, I have no idea what that means. OB means the commander-in-chief. Okay, so Oberkommando, OKW, that's the prefix, okay. What's it? H is the Hears? I'm not sure. Okay. Jets, ooh. This should be a late war development, but turn 5. So some of these have different turns. You probably set those aside. You don't shuffle them in until those turns arrive. Okay, that's cool. Good way to, like here, turn 7, turn 4. Let's look at the Soviets next, and then the Western Allies. Okay, let me try to make sure I'm going to zoom out a little more there so you can still see it, but make sure I get, I'm not cutting off part of the card here for you. Fate. Okay, you're making a dice roll be re-rolled. Artillery, get +2, kaboom boom. Operation Uranus. You can pronounce it Uranus if you want. But, strategic move. Oh. 1 Soviet unit may move any distance, infinity. So there's strategic redeployment for partisans. Okay, there's 2 of those. Tank corps. The Volkov front. Kalinin front. Different effect depending on the turn. So only a 1 pip unit versus a 2 pip unit. All right. Operation Bagration. Now, many, probably most, the majority say Bagration, but is named after General Bagration. I believe he was a prince, maybe, or something in the Russian army during the Napoleonic era. Bagration. Actually, so which is very easy if you can read Cyrillic. You see how it's spelled, and you say, well, duh, it's pronounced Bagration. But when you look at it in English, I used to call it Bagration. But, yeah. All right. Let's look at the allies. Fate, another reroll. OSS Espionage. Cancel a card's effect. That's nice. No, you don't get to do what you're planning on. You thought you were going to be so sneaky. Code breaking. Armored Infantry. Yeah, some of these cards you definitely not going to be playing as many in the mud. Many of these are based on weather effects. Partisans. Ah, boy, these are just so... Another one of those strategic movement type. Polish Free Forces. So it's interesting. You don't have to have them present. It's just like, hey, this is assumed to, we have some Polish Free Forces. We're getting a bonus here on the die modifier of the die roll. And we're just assuming it's the, using our Polish Free Forces. All right. Allied Force Headquarters. Get a free attack and get to add to if fair weather. Carpet bombing. Gain air superiority. Now that's odd. That seems odd to me. You play it if neither side has air superiority and you gain air superiority. Now, I don't know. Using carpet bombing is something that you do normally when you already have air superiority, and you're going to fly a bunch of bombers out and you're going to bomb the snot out of a certain area. And it's like, I'm not really worried about getting intercepted because I have air superiority. So this is weird to me. I would like to see maybe the designer notes why this is designed this way. I would not personally have thought ever to implement a card giving you air superiority when you don't have it. I'd say it's because of carpet bombing. Now, if you were bombing the snot out of their airfields, but still very hard to do if you don't already have air superiority. You can keep them down, but like if you don't have air superiority, so that's the only real thing. Physically, these cards, but this is a weird one to me. So I'm gonna set that aside and say I want to find out why that, if there's any understanding of why that was implemented that way. Alexander, Montgomery, Patton, Supreme Headquarters, Allied. All right. Bradley, Devers. I am not French. American or French unit. Okay. Operation Dragoon, in order to open a Mediterranean port in France for the Allied supplies, liberate Vichy, France, linked up with Bradley's 12th Army Group in September 1944. So you can't play it until turn 6. I'm not sure if this is turn 6 or later. It must be turn 6. All right, so that was the cards. I'll leave that one there because I'm curious. If anyone knows why they implemented this way, a carpet bombing card that says you gain Western air superiority. That's just seems a little odd to me and strange. I do not understand, and there might be a perfectly good explanation. I'm not attempting to nitpick. I'm attempting to understand. I have a question. All right, folks. So this was Meandering Mike in the Man Cave of Madness. We have unboxed Downfall, and I'm going to attempt once more to put this box up here, but I'm going to lean it to make sure that it doesn't flip over. I'm going to have to zoom. There we go. Downfall. We've got so many goodies. We got charts. We got maps. Multiple maps. We got good old counter sheets. Oh, one of them was starting to pop out. All right. That dice. So, that has been our unboxing of Downfall, Conquest of the Third regime, 1942 to 1945, a 2-player game that there's really 3 sides, so you each play 1.5 sides, just like old school Battle for Germany from SPI. Again, the designer initially Chad Jensen, taken over by John Butterfield, design consultant Kai Jensen. This is nominated for World War II era category, strategic category, and Game of the Year. Haven't played it, but I think it would be cool if it won Game of the Year. But sort of a last salute to Chad Jensen, and great credit to John Butterfield, who's very, very excellent game designer. So this is it. Make sure you voted. the deadline is ticking away here. It's very close to the end, and you have to have voted. And I will cover some more of these, but at a much slower pace, maybe 1 or 2 a week, going out and try to finish up the rest of the nominees in various categories and things. I was going to talk about more about others. I won't talk about it here. I'll talk about it elsewhere. But so I gotta just sign off here now. This has been way too long. But as Meandering Mike does meander. But to good purpose and good end. And to those of you, I hope, that have gone this far, it's going to be very few and far between. But I do appreciate you, participating and viewing. And if you're a subscriber, great. I encourage that. But I'll keep going as long as people seem to enjoy the content. And even if those that don't, I'm open to your discussion, your argument, your comments, as long as they're civil and polite. That's fine, and we can disagree and argue and discuss back and forth. That's cool. All right, so all you good folks out there, take care, and don't forget to take care of your games, because they'll take care of you. Ciao.